Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's probably wrong to start a lecture with a conclusion, but since it's the same as the initial proposition, I don't think it matters. I firmly believe that if you take the three leading sailing towns in the Solent, Lymington, Cowes and the Hamble, then Gosport should be the fourth corner of that triangle. I grew up in Lymington, and I actually reckon it's more of a state of mind than an actual place. Cowes, if you did a risk assessment for the amount of commercial traffic goes past, would never be able to hold any yacht races, ever. Hamble is just a creek with a halfway decent pub. So there are some things of which Gosport can be rightly proud, and this is the purpose of this gloriously badly titled talk. Let's go back in time. It's 1851. Actually, no, it's not. It's 1642. Civil War and the Roundheads are here in Gosport, bombarding the Cavaliers in Portsmouth. The site of the cannon that they are doing this with is in the Castle Tavern, or where the Castle Tavern will be, possibly where the gents' toilets are today. Even now, if you go into the gents in the Castle Tavern and listen long enough, you can hear what sounds like distant gunfire. Two good things come out of this. One, we are still at war with Portsmouth. Actually, we're not. We signed terms on 1st of September last year, which means we can begin prisoner transfer. Frat for Bridge Mary seems fair. And two, this is the very site where a mere 140 years later, Francis Amos, shipwright from London, sets up a shipyard. The name Francis Amos may not ring a bell, but his great-nephew, who joins the company in 1809, is called William Camper. Fast forward, it is now 1851. Queen Victoria is the Queen. The Great Exhibition is on. 8 miles away from Gosport, the Royal Yacht Squadron is having a race. Some American sailors are grippingly excited by their new schooner, predictably called America, and in a show of international love and cooperation, the Commodore of the Royal Yacht Squadron invites the new and exciting New York Yacht Club to come across the pond and, hey, maybe throw in some racing while they are here. Because of rules, the only race they can enter with their lovely schooner is the RYS £100 Cup. £100 is about 17,500 in today's money, or the cost of a new Rolex if you are Ben Ainsley. It is the 22nd of August. 18 yachts enter, 15 start. They race clockwise round the Isle of Wight. Queen Victoria is watching the race. But how did she get here, across the Solent Sea, such illustrious yachting, I hear you ask? She comes by train. And where is the best interchange for those of a royal disposition who wish to embark the royal yacht? Gosport. Clarence Yard in particular, where she has a newly built station to alight from. So she's watching the yachting. America is in the lead, so much so that when she asks who is second, the reply is no one. The Americans win. They take the lovely 4-kilogram trophy home with them. This is not a good thing. It's a mere 75 years since we gave the colonials their freedom. This is not gratitude. And so begins the 123-year-long struggle to win the bloody thing back. Here in the 19th century, the beginnings of modern yacht racing are being begun. Our first Toff is Sir Thomas Lipton, a self-made man who began his career as a cabin boy, and by the turn of the century was hobnobbing with royalty, although the Royal Yacht Squadron wouldn't let him in because he is trade. His genius idea was selling tea at a price poor people could afford. He likes sailing and takes it very seriously. The America's Cup needs to be brought home, so in 1899 he has a new yacht designed and built. It is called Shamrock. She is so good that he beats the Prince of Wales in his yacht. He goes to America, races in what they are now calling the America's Cup, and loses. So he builds Shamrock II and ups his royal game by taking King Edward VII sailing. They're at the start of a race off Cowes when a puff of wind knocks the mast right over the side. But the king is safe and responds by lighting a fresh cigar. In the racing in New York in September, Lipton loses to the yacht Columbia 3-0. Lipton does not give up. He builds Shamrock 3, takes to America in 1903, and loses. Shamrock 4 is built in 1914, races in the 1920s America's Cup, and loses. The good news is that she was designed by Charles E. Nicholson. So, in an effort to damp the excitement, we must pause and introduce Charles E. Nicholson and the hero of this whole lecture. If we ever run to more statues around this town, then he should be on top of the list. Remember Camper here in Gosport? Well, Charles E.'s father was Benjamin Nicholson, who joins the firm in 1842. The firm becomes Camper and Nicholson, and in 1875, overrun by the father and his two sons, becomes Nicholson's plural. One of those sons is Charles E. Nicholson. Benjamin was a dab hand at yacht design, but it's Charles who is the star. So with one Toff and one hero, it's time to throw in the tall ship. It's 1927. A mere 120 years after the Spanish, along with their chums in the French Navy, find conditions off Cape Trafalgar not to their liking, the Spanish Navy comes looking for a tall ship. And at this point I would like to interrupt myself by raising my own hand and asking what is a tall ship. I won't quote John Masefield, but instead give a quick rundown of sailing ships through the ages. We have traders, expeditions to the New World, warfare, immigration, and, briefly, clipper ships. The materials used to build the ships changes from wood to iron, and this makes for bigger ships, but the rig itself quickly reaches a level of sophistication that has hardly changed in 400 years. By 1927, tall ships are mainly used for cadet training and for cargo. Anyway, the Spanish Navy wants a tall ship and asks Charles E. Nicholson to design one. And to be fair, he does this at the Southampton yard, not here in Gosport. It is a four-masted topsail schooner in steel and at 113 metres is even today the fourth biggest sail training tall ship in the world. Juan Sebastián de Elcano was of course the man who took over the expedition when Ferdinand Magellan was killed while circumnavigating the world in 1521. And since I've given up any sense of sequential time, let's spool back 11 years. World War I, 1916. The second of our Toffs is Thomas Sopwith. He's the designer of many planes, including the Sopwith Camel plane, a small, agile fighter and not the easiest thing to fly. Allegedly, pilots said you would end up with either a wooden cross, the Red Cross, or a Victoria Cross, while trying to keep it from stalling. And during the war, the Sopwith Aviation Company produced more than 18,000 aircraft. 5,747 are Camels. Some were stationed at the airfield at Fort Grange. Two quick facts about Sopwith. He went to engineering college in Hill Head, and at the age of 10 he accidentally shot his father dead. 1930. Lipton builds Shamrock 5, which is also designed by Nicholson, is the first J-class. It is built in the Camper and Nicholson's yard just off Monby Road. It takes part in the 1930 America's Cup. He loses every single race, so much so that they give him a special medal for being the best of all losers. The good news is that with all the publicity he gets while losing, means Lipton tea becomes famous in America. Unfortunately, the Americans don't read the instructions and even today drink it cold with ice. Sir Thomas Lipton ups and dies in 1931 and Sir Thomas Sopwith buys Shamrock 5. He uses this to study J-class racing and then with his advanced aerospace knowledge he commissions Charles E. Nicholson to design and build his own J-class in Gosport. So what is a J-class? Well, under the American designer Nat Harrishoff's universal rule, it was a way for different yachts to race against each other. A time correction factor, if you will. There's the formula, so that's that sorted. I will tell you what J-class are. Bloody amazing. Very rich men can have Maltese Falcon and Sailing Yacht A, but I believe that nothing is more impressive or has been surpassed by the J-class yacht. Shamrock 5 was 119 feet long and a mast 165 feet high, which is pretty impressive to begin with. I am by profession a marine photographer, so it was almost inevitable that at some point to fill out this rubbish there would be a slideshow. Back in 2001, the America's Cup celebrated 175 years of racing, and the J-Class came back to the Solent and to race in Christchurch Bay. And three of Gosport's own took part. Sopwith's Endeavour, Shamrock 5 and Velsheda, which was built in 1933 for William Stevenson, managing director Woolworths, and cunningly named for his daughters Velma, Sheila and Daphne. There are one or two takeaways from this. One, if the press boat you're in is bearing its bow and making huge amounts of spray, a bit like a destroyer in one of those World War II Battle of the Atlantic movies, then you know it's a bit of a sea state, which is no problem if you're a J-class. And two, and I cannot emphasise this enough, if a Yachting World journalist says you photographers must be loving this, do not answer, yeah, but in the back of your head you do hope something goes wrong, just as the big spotted spinnaker rips and wraps itself around the forestay. Photographers should be seen and not heard, as this talk is probably proving. This is Shamrock 5 beating Velsheda. 1934. Endeavour is launched in Gosport in April. It's a big event for the town. Endeavour is Sopwith's first crack at the America's Cup. She does well racing other yachts here in the UK and tests herself against Velsheda. There is a dispute over wages, and his professional crew resign and he fills their places with amateurs. He tows Endeavour across the Atlantic with his personal yacht, Vita. Wait for it, built by Camper and Nicholson's. He races against Rainbow, skipper by Harold Vanderbilt. There is anger that Rainbow has been stripped out down below, while Endeavour has proper accommodation, including a bath. The first race is abandoned. The next two are won by Endeavour. She narrowly loses the third, and the fourth is all about near collisions and protest committees, and is eventually awarded to Rainbow. This race is still discussed today, and whether the Americans won only on a technicality. Rainbow goes on to win 2 more races and retains the cup. Sopwith is gracious in defeat. He tries again in 1937 with Endeavour 2, but the time of J-class yachts is passing, war is coming. Vanderbilt wins again with his yacht Ranger. Now, from Toffs back to tall ships. 1953. Esmeralda. The Spanish Navy decides to replace Juan Sebastian de Elcano, but for various reasons cannot complete the hull. In steps the Chilean Navy and takes the hull and uses her to this day as a sail training vessel. For the half-dozen anoraks, hello, my name is Max and I'm an anorak, to whom this is important, her rig is actually barkentine, whereas Juan Sebastian is a topsail schooner. 1956, 3 years later, someone decides we ought to have one final race for all the tall ships still sailing. A one-off, a last hurrah. There were 20 entries, 5 which were the big square riggers. There is even a ketch manned entirely by girl cadets. Shocking. Greek billionaire Stavros Niarchos lends his yacht Creole so that British cadets can take part. Creole was designed and built in Gosport in 1927. 1956 proves an amazing success. More races are planned. Along the way, it also becomes apparent that Britain should have its own tall ship for this thing called sail training. Funds are raised. By the end of the 50s, the last cargo-carrying tall ship has gone. Most are used for cadet training for merchant and military sailors. But the concept of sail training was creeping in. Adventurous activity of young people. A waterborne Duke of Awards thing, a touch of national service for all those unlucky enough to have missed out. A design is commissioned. Oh, you know where this is going. Not Charles E., but Camper and Nicholson's designed the 3-masted schooner Sir Winston Churchill, launched in 1966 and looking not unlike the Creole owned by Niarchos. The races become more and more successful, and the concept of sail training extends to traditional vessels and even yachts. The word tall ship, in the context of tall ships races, comes to mean any sail training vessel, and not just something with yards and square sails. To allow different rigs to race, they devise a time correction factor, a universal rule, if you will. It means a modern ketch can race against a classic pilot cutter. It also means Jolly Breeze wins every small ships race. Small ships race is the first Saturday of every year of cows, and it's definitely worth a look if you're passing. The big tall ships races go from every 2 years to every year. In 1974, the Russians take part for the first time. The races are organised from an office in Mumby Road. For a while, the Ocean Youth Club, founded in 1960, has its office in the bus station. And you will love this. For a while, they have 2 yachts called Sir Thomas Sopwith and Sir Thomas Lipton. The races are now run by Sail Training International, who live in Clarence Yard. UK sail training is looked after by ASTO, the Association of Sail Training Organisations, in North Meadow off Weevil Lane. The Sea Cadets run their offshore operation from Fort Blockhouse, a brig, 2 yachts and 2 power yachts. And the Joint Services Adventurous Sail Training Centre is in Haslar Road by HMS Hornet. For a long time they had a fleet of yachts called Nicholson 55s, designed and built at Camper and Nicholson's in Mumby Road. So it is true, as my friend Peter Cardy says, that Gosport really is the cradle of sail training. And for the final part of my talk, I would like to apologise unreservedly for the use of the word toilet. I did, of course, mean lavatory. alliteration should never trump good manners. For all the high and mighty aspirations of yachting, books called Racing to Win and clubs with Royal in the title, there are some basic amenities in any situation that come high on the list. A warm, dry bunk, some food that may be more than pasta with pesto sauce, somewhere you can safely ablute. We're in the land of euphemism here, but you know what I mean. Behold the Blake's Marine Toilet. A porcelain, metal and wood construction using some bizarre pumping mechanism and prone to not working, but still a thing of joy. The J-Class had them. The brand name is Blake's. The company name is Blake's of Gosport. The porcelain is crafted elsewhere, but they are completed and sold here in Gosport. We should be rightly proud. If you're familiar with their operation, no more should be said except counselling is available. Where are they now? Juan Sebastian de Elcano is still sailing and takes part in the tall ships races. Esmeralda is just one of the many South American naval tall ships. Sir Winston Churchill retired in 2000. Her sister ship Malcolm Miller in 2001. They are both now private yachts. Shamrock 5, Endeavour and Velsheda are still racing. Blake's are now owned by Seashore and Wales. Camper and Nicholson's was bought out in 2001 and the Gosport Yard closed in 2005. It's now owned by Premier Marinas and called Endeavour Quay. Sir Robin Knox-Johnson's Clipper Ventures keep their fleet there. His famous yacht Suhaili is in the marina there too. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Max Moody and my project is grandly called Gosport Museum of the Sea. Its intention to celebrate all the non-military connections we have with many things maritime. Lymington may have its marinas and sailmakers and designers, and Cowes may have its squadron and its week. But the town that brought to the world the sheer majesty and the size of the J-Class yacht, and the town that also arranges the spectacular tall ships races, and the town that helps improve lives through sail training, and let's face it, the town that produced the pleasure of the Blake's Marine Toilet, which has benefited more sailors than anything else in the maritime world, then that town ought to be celebrated, and that town is Gosport. Thank you.